how we do that and why we do that has nothing to do with compensation whatsoever. I want to make that very clear. On the other side, there's a set of rules that were put in place that I think can be applied to this situation. So we've communicated through the right channels, so we'll see what happens as we move forward.
When do you expect an answer?
I'm not sure. We'll just wait for a response.
Is it your understanding right now that you're not getting one? Is it
No one personally called me from the league, so. Yeah.
Ian was just here and said that he thinks you should, and you think you should.
Yeah.
So the Bears think you should, the Falcons think you
Yep.
should. It seems like.
Yeah. So it'll be up to the league and how they see it.
So you formally have appealed it to the league?
We've had conversations. Yep.
What's your overall opinion of the rule itself, like, just from your standpoint?
Yeah, I mean, I'll be honest. I think it is a little strange. I mean, at the end of the day, you should want to develop your staff regardless of the color of their skin. I think that's important. I think we take a lot of pride with the Bears on how we have our setup, and I take a lot of pride in that. So to be compensated for that's a little strange. I mean, I saw the Chiefs get a pick because of me, and then I watched that player go and play. It's just a little odd. But at the end of the day, if they think that's what's best to help incentivize, then that's what they wanted to do. But at the end of the day, like I said, that's not the purpose of why we develop our staff. But if that's the rule they have in place, then I think it's very clear in the situation on what should happen. But we'll see what they think. Yep. Yeah, I think there's a vision for it. I think in the next few weeks, we'll see if we can get some clarity on that, just in terms of retaining our own. I want to see how that plays out. As I said, at the end of the season, we have more constraints now than we ever have before. We're further back in the draft. From a cap standpoint, we got to clear some room there. So we have to be strategic, and also, like I've always said, it takes two to make that happen. So we want to be really smart with the guardrails that we put up, and if it falls into that, then great. If not, then we have to pivot to the next deal.
All right, guys, we'll get back to Bears GM Ryan Poles here in just a moment, but want to take a moment to remind you guys to subscribe to the channel. We'll have content from Indianapolis all week at the NFL Combine. Excited to bring that to all of you, but we're here every single day. Maybe you're new here. We're dropping multiple videos on the channel, YouTube Shorts. We go live every Monday and Thursday as well, and things are going to start to heat up. Rumors are going to be flying from the Combine. We're going to hear from these prospects and players that the Bears could be interested in, guys around the league they could trade for, sign in free agency, the NFL Draft just a couple of months away as well, and interactive, engaging content. We want to hear from you in the comments and in the live chats of our stream, so subscribe to the channel. Let's send it back out to Ryan Poles.
Yeah, we'll have conversations over the next, probably 10 days here, and see if we can make that happen.
Trying to get it a little different, obviously. What's it like just working with Matt, trying to figure out ways where there's restructuring?
Yeah, I'm really fortunate to have Matt Feinstein. I think he's one of the best cap guys in the league. He gives us a lot of different scenarios for us to operate in, but also showing us the short-term and long-term effect of each one of those decisions, because we want to stay in that sweet spot where we have maximum amount of flexibility as we move on, not only from this year, but 3 years down the road. I hope eventually to have a quarterback situation, too, where we got to pay a young quarterback. So that comes into play as well. I think we're getting closer and closer to clarity on that side of things, which helps us start to build those models to make sure that, again, we're doing the right thing for us moving forward, and we're not put ourselves in a situation where we got to make really, tough or bad decisions down the road that hurt us.
How are you looking at this year as far as drafting need versus, we're in a better spot, I'll just take the best player available here?
Yeah, philosophically, I feel the same. It's going to be the best player available. I know that may not be the most popular thing because people see kind of like on my board I have yellow tags where we need to fill in, but at the same time, I do believe, especially in early rounds like 1, you really got to stick to best player available. We saw that last year. I know there's a lot of questions like, you got Cole, why would you take Colston? I think we found out that it helped us along the way. So we'll continue to lean into that philosophy.
How tricky is it to navigate the linebacker position with some of the injuries that coaches sustain?
Yeah, it's really difficult. We spent a lot of time working through that process. There's some unknowns there. There's some projections just in terms of return time. And then you want to know, is that athlete going to return to be the same player he was before? Or is it, could they go downhill? So there's a lot of projections, and that make it a little bit difficult. But I think that's when you lean into versatility, flexibility, and making sure that you get the right person in the room to make sure that that group can be filled out the best it can.
Ryan, when you're just what can you learn what City about picking later on that kind of challenges?
Yeah, I think the big one, and it's not just in Kansas City, you can look across the league. I think and it sounds really simple, but you want to take a good football player that meets the criteria that you're looking for in terms of culture fits, play style, intelligence, all of those things. You really want to lean into that. I think sometimes you can get caught in flashy. You're trying to, that guy should have went in the top 15 and he slid because of this reason, but we'll fix that, and I think you want a good football player that matches the DNA that you're looking for.
Right, what you just said about quarterback this time around, you're not looking for a quarterback now, but there are teams who are. What are your thoughts on the trade market and with Tyson?
Yeah.
Have you gotten any calls on him or any interest somewhere else?
Yeah, we anticipated that just because of the environment. Both, I think, if you piece and kind of do an overlay of the draft and free agency, we anticipated someone like Tyson's going to get some, interest. We've gotten a few calls there. Obviously, the tough thing is with, what Ben thinks about Tyson, what I think about Tyson, what our locker room thinks about Tyson. That's a really tough decision for us. But for Tyson as well, I think he would have an opportunity to go and perform for a team and do some really good things. But again, you got to weigh the short term and long term. So now, what's the cost of replacement, right? To get someone like Tyson, we spent a lot of time developing him. Ben spent a lot of time developing him, so you got to replace that as well. So, interesting dynamic there that we're gonna have to work through.
What you just said about Caleb as far as long term, that's the first time the Bears have said that or felt that way all over
Yeah.
a long time. How does that change the equation for you when you know that, or you feel that piece is solid?
Yeah, I would say, and I want to be clear, anyone that's watched the league long enough knows that it's, for the quarterback play, it's consistency. Can you stack years on top of each other? So we still have steps to go here. I don't want to make it like he's already in. He knows he's got work to do. Ben's been very clear with the vision, and I know he's going to put the time in to get to that, but that needs to get to that point. But if all of that falls into place, again, I think we strategically have to understand how does that change our formula as we move forward and make decisions in the future. But for the organization, that's a great thing to be on that path. I feel like you have a long-term quarterback solution. It makes me excited. Obviously, he's excited. Ben's excited. So it's good for everybody.
On this side of that decision, you have the rookie window where you're going to get top-level quarterback play at a discount.
Yep.
So how much do you feel the pressure of the clock ticking on that?
Yeah, I wouldn't say there's a pressure of the clock ticking. I think you want to take advantage of those opportunities to get as much talent on the roster as possible. But again, how you make all that fit is the part that we got to be really strategic about.
What you did with the offensive line last year, is it possible to do that on the defensive line side, add that quantity and that kind of quality as well?
Yeah, I think it's always possible. Things got to come together. That mindset was there from the day I walked in. But those opportunities, the clarity that we needed wasn't all there. So we were able to capitalize on some cool situations there through trade and free agency. I'm not sure how that's all going to line up now. I know from a cap perspective, we probably don't have enough to make all of that work on the defensive line. I do think on our D-line, I think there's some situations, mostly injury, that didn't allow that to really come together the way it was supposed to. So I look forward to that happening. But we're also going to have to continue to bring talent in to create competition so that our defense can take the next step.
How do you look at the depth of defensive end in this draft versus defensive tackle?
Yeah, I would say from what we know now, and not until we leave here and gather the information from medical interviews will we have complete clarity on the draft. But as it sits right now, I feel like the edge is deeper than the interior.
Ryan, a lot of people under this CBA is kind of golden idea that
win a championship with a young quarterback in his first contract, while you spend the money elsewhere. Why do you think that hasn't happened?
Say that one more time.
Why do you think it hasn't happened for anybody winning a championship with a young cheap quarterback while being able to spend the resources?
Yeah, I think you've seen some teams have some success in terms of winning a championship in the Super Bowl. I'd say that's a it's a pretty deep question that starts all the way back in how we're developing talent from high school, college, NIL, transfers, coaching, where the focus is for some of these kids. I think it's a lot deeper than just what we see in the league. But I would say development is probably the place I would lean into. These guys have a lot to learn coming into this league. Simply as, it was just until last year you're throwing up a card, right, to put the play in for everybody. And they got to go in and now hear it through a headset, regurgitate it, give it to the huddle, get to the line of scrimmage on time, and then maybe just flip the play to the other side. It's really complicated, and I think the game has gotten more and more complicated to create a tactical advantage for offenses, and that's really hard for young quarterbacks because it's all brand new. It's a different language. So I would lean into development to answer your question.
Couple more.
Oh, yeah. Financially, you can field the best team when that quarterback isn't taking up a massive piece of the cap pie.
You made some big additions halfway through the season for that defense. Would you say that you started to get somewhat of a better bearing of what Dennis Allen needs to see his vision of his defense?
Yeah. When we first got Dennis in, and it's really for all the coaches, position coaches, coordinators, they came in and talked about what they need, like what's prototype. I knew from what Dennis was bringing, scheme change over the last few years, it was going to take a little bit of time to get exactly what we needed. But as you go through that season, you ask more questions. You're sitting in the weekly evals of our roster, all the way to last week here, and then go through their UFA stacks and inserting where our players line up in there, both guys under contract and not. You get more and more clarity as you go through. So I feel pretty good about that.
Last one.
Yeah, I think it paints a clear picture in terms of makeup. I like to follow the whole journey. I don't hold it against the 18-year-old that gets $1 million to go to school and maybe didn't have his priorities straight. I think most of us here, if that happened to us, we might be doing some crazy things too, or maybe not focused where we should be focused. But I want to see the learning lessons that come from that. I want to understand their structure of the people they put around them. I want to understand how they battle through adversity. I think the toughest thing is when there's an out to transfer, when things get hard. We hurt the resilience of our young players. So I want to learn through that and understand how they grew throughout their whole deal. And that doesn't mean we would eliminate everybody, but we know what's coming in the building and what we need to lean into, because I think we have to pick up some of that education on our side more than back in the day where colleges were kind of doing that education along the way. And I don't blame the college coaches. Like, that's a really tough position. You got to compete. You got to get the best rosters together, knowing that guys are going to be in and out. So you're going to have Band-Aids and bridges to install an offense. It may not be as complex as ours because the guys are coming in for a year and then they're out. So there's a lot there in terms of the impact that it has in the NFL.
Ryan's talking about how tough some of the decisions are going to be this offseason.
Yeah.
Bringing guys back. Jaquan Brisker, how he played, definitely raised his price point into this offseason.
Yeah.
How you want to pay your draft picks.
Yeah.
But you also got to be realistic roster construction. How tough is that decision?
It's really tough, and I know I've talked about those tough decisions in the past. I think what changes is when you win, bonds and relationships get deeper. And knowing that right now we sit over the cap, like we got to make some decisions, if that's cuts, if that's trades. There's real relationships of people that gave it up for the Chicago Bears to advance our organization, and they may not be able to stay. And that sucks, to be honest with you. But it's what makes this league beautiful. It's why we're all here. It constantly gets shuffled up and moved around, and it's the challenge of putting together the best puzzle you can with different pieces. So really difficult, but that's what we signed up for. You got to make those tough decisions, and they are business decisions. You kind of try to take your emotions out of it and do what's best for the organization.
Thanks, guys.
Good.